we're going to look at solving equations with fractional coefficients. You may also hear them called rational coefficients. Rational, you studied rational numbers last year. Those are things that can be written as fractions. So what we're going to start with, these are two-step equations. We have done these before. These are the two-step equations we've already done with a fractional coefficient. That means the number in front of the variable is a fraction. So, as with all two-step equations, we are undoing, so we are trying to isolate the variable, so we're going to save that to the very end. We have to get rid of this plus 4. The inverse to plus 4 is minus 4. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. We're going to bring down the 2/7 in. Plus 4 minus 4 is 0. We don't have to write that because when we add 0 to a number, it does not change it. 10 minus 4 is 6. Now, do you remember how we handle that fraction in front of the variable, that fractional coefficient? Here's the rule. Remember that you multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So you're going to flip and multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 7 over 2. So we're going to do times 7 over 2 on the left side, times 7 over 2 on the right side. Now, the reason we do that is a number times its reciprocal cancels. It's 1. A number times its reciprocal is 1, and we're left with 1 n or just n. Then we're multiplying a whole number times a fraction. So we're going to put the whole number over 1. The 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 3 times 7 is 21. Let's do it again. Negative 1/3 p plus 1 equals 10. I have a fractional coefficient. I have a fraction in front of my variable. I'm going to save that part to the very end. I'm going to get rid of the plus 1. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides of the equal sign. I'm going to bring down the negative 1/3 p. Don't lose your negative. Plus 1 minus 1, that becomes 0. Anything plus 0 is itself, so we don't write it. 10 minus 1 is 9. Now, what's the inverse of this negative 1/3? Well, the inverse of a fraction is its reciprocal, so I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 3 over 1. Don't lose your negative here. So I'm going to multiply this side by negative 3 over 1. A number times its reciprocal is 1. All of that cancels and becomes 1. I'm left with p equals, now this really over here, this is just two whole numbers, right? This is really just 9 times negative 3, and I get negative 27. Okay? I want you to pause the video. I want you to try these two right here on your own, then turn the video back on and see how you did. So, for this first one, I got c equals 18. For the second one, x equals negative 40. Why don't you check your work if you missed them, see if you can find what you did wrong, and correct your mistake. If you have any questions, stop the video and ask. Make sure you understand these before you move on to the next set. Now, these look a little longer. They look a little more involved. People see fractions and they get scared. Don't be scared of these. Remember our equation steps. The first thing we look for, if we've got a multi-step equation, we look to see if we can distribute. Well, I look at these problems here. There are no parentheses. There is nothing to distribute. So what's our second step? If there's nothing to distribute, what do we do next? We combine like terms. Okay? So I look and I see a 5/3 x and I see a negative 4/3 x. Those are like terms. Now, what is 5/3 minus 4/3? Think about that a minute. When we're subtracting fractions, we have to have a common denominator. We do. 5/3 minus 4/3 is 1/3 x, right? I bring down the minus 1. I didn't have any like terms with my constant. I bring down my equal sign. I bring down my 8. One step, and now magically I have a problem that looks just like we were doing a second ago. This is a two-step equation. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. 1/3 x equals 9. The reciprocal of 1/3, this is a fractional coefficient, is 3. 3 over 1. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 over 1. My number times its reciprocal is 1. 9 times 3 is 27. Okay? I look at the second one here. 1/8 d minus 4 plus 3/8 d minus 4 equals 5. Is there anything to distribute? No. Can I combine like terms? I think I can. I look, I see a 1/8 d, and then I see a 3/8 d. Those are both like terms, right? They both have a d. What's 1/8 plus 3/8? Did you say 4/8? So 4/8 d. Then I look, I see a minus 4 and a minus 4. What is negative 4 minus 4? Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8 equals 5. Now I'm back to a two-step equation. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. I get 4/8d equals 13. I've got a fractional coefficient. I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. This all cancels nice and neat, and I get d equals. And I look at this here, I put this 13 over 1, and 4 doesn't go in to 13, right? It doesn't go into 13, so I'm going to multiply straight across, and I get 104 over 4, and I'm going to see if that divides evenly. So I'm going to do 104 divided by 4, and I get 26. It does. So D equals 26. So even though it was a little scarier, it still worked out kind of neat, okay? Or neatly. So I want you to pause the video. I want you to try these next two on your own. They're just like the first two. Then turn the video back on and check your work. So for this first one, I got negative 60. Be careful with those negatives. Don't lose them. In the second one, I got negative 16. If you got something different, check your work, see if you can correct it. If you have any questions, ask them right now. Make sure you understand these before you go to the last set. The last thing we're going to look at are problems that involve distributing a fraction. So you'll notice all of these have a fraction in front of the parentheses. So here we're distributing the 1/3, which means we're going to multiply 1/3 times 3x, and we're going to multiply 1/3 times 6. I'm going to do my fraction multiplication over to the side. So I'm going to do 1/3 times 3x first. I'm going to put that over 1. My 3's canceled. And what am I left with? I'm just left with 1x. So you can write just x. You could write the 1 there if you want. Okay? Don't have to. Then I'm going to do 1/3 times 6. Well, that's a fraction times a whole number. Put it over 1. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 1 times 2 is 2. So I end up with x plus 2 equals 18. Isn't that pretty? That's a one-step equation. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get x is 16. Nice and simple. Okay? So these distributive problems with a fraction outside the parentheses are going to turn out pretty nicely. They don't always turn out this pretty, but these are going to be pretty nice. Okay? Next, I have 3/4 times 8x minus 16 equals 6. I'm going to distribute this 3/4. I'm going to do 3/4 times 8x, and 3/4 times what kind of 16? Negative 16. Be careful with that. So I'm going to come to the side and show that. 3/4 times 8x, I'm going to put that over 1. 4 goes into 8. 2 times 3 times 2, I get 6x. So 3/4 times 8x is 6x. I'm just multiplying fractions like you've done. Now this next one is a positive times a negative, so my middle sign is going to be negative, and I'm going to come over to the side and I'm going to do 3/4 times 16. I'm going to put that 16 over 1. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12. So this is going to be 6x minus 12. equals 6. Now it's a nice two-step equation. Add 12 to both sides. 6x equals 18. Divide both sides by 6. And x is 3. So those turn out pretty nicely, even though they look a little scary. So I want you to try the two at the bottom, pause the video, then turn it back on to check your work. So for these, I got x equals -9 for the first problem. I got x equals -4 for the second problem. Check my work, check your work. If you have any questions on where anything came from, ask for help.